Hello and welcome to the People Do That podcast.
On this podcast, we're going to talk to people that do epic shit with their lives.
These are people that are good at life. We will talk to life coaches, sports broadcasters, fitness experts, Marine special ops, and even someone who became a doctor after the age of 50. Because you know what?
People do that.
People do that?
People do that.
Well, I give you just a little bit, I don't need a lot. Open up your heart, show me what you got. The sugar tastes sweet, coffee in the pot. Now give me just a little bit, just a little bit. Give me just, yeah, now.
Okay, guys, we got another badass woman with us today. Meet Olenka Cullinan, a remarkable entrepreneur and advocate for empowering women to reach their full potential in both their personal and professional lives. Olenka is the Chief Sparkle Officer and founder of I Start First, a company designed to help women reclaim their time, scale their businesses, and elevate their mindset. Olenka's journey is deeply rooted in her personal experiences, growing up in Eastern Europe and witnessing her mother's challenges in maintaining a work-life balance. Inspired by her own story, she has dedicated her career to supporting women in their entrepreneurial endeavors. In 2021, she was named one of the top 10 business coaches to watch by Yahoo News, as well as Phoenix 40 Under 40 businesswomen in 2017. She has given 2 TED Talks at TEDx. She has 2 Amazon best-selling books and has done over 750 training workshops and keynote speeches. My friends, meet the amazing Olenka Cullinan.
First of all, Nick, you are hired as the new intro leader.
Yes,
That was 95% you. That was 5% great job, buddy. Great job.
Good job, Nick.
That was awesome.
I didn't. I
big.
purposely didn't read the whole thing because I like to read it with my own inflection when I start.
Yes.
And I almost just started crying when I saw TED Talks. One of my favorite things to watch.
I
So
love
now I got to
that.
watch your TED Talks.
Yes.
I
All
love
right.
TED Talks.
Yeah, well, welcome, Olenka. She is also a big fan of the podcast. She says she's been following it since the beginning.
Day one, you announced. I was on it.
Day one
Tracy with
follower.
Tracy O'Malley from those days, and
Yeah.
She watched Asha, which was just recently released. I was going to tell you guys on Easter, my father-in-law, I think he might have a crush on the Asha Rich. He's like, so Tim, yeah, that podcast you guys just did. I thought she was just interesting, inspiring. I think he was thinking of the words without, yeah.
I
Does
think
he-
Bilo called me out too. He goes, "Reader, you seem to kind of move in a little bit on that one." I couldn't hear her. I just had to slide.
So you asked how I met Olenka. Olenka came to speak in a group I'm at. It's called Vistage, and she is a well-known speaker to our group of CEOs and business owners. And I was like so moved with what she taught us for like time scheduling, how important things are, culture. It was awesome. And so I had her come speak to all our Sombreros managers last year, and just incredible stuff. And so she is, you know how we talk about people do that, and like she is like the epitome of like people do that. Her story is incredible. So I was hoping she could just talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
let's
that
roll it
too.
back. So, like a talk like that, going to speak to that type of group. What is the topic? What's the flow of it? What's the energy? What?
Yeah.
Bring us to it.
Well, I mean, I do have a couple different topics. The one that I talked to Tim's group was about optimization, right? Like everybody talks about time, and we all want to be in Bali with an umbrella drink. But in reality, we all have very finite time. And we talk about time being money all the time, but nobody lives their life like that, right? Because if we truly treated every minute of our day as if it's $1, a lot of us would do things very differently. So optimization to me, I'm a mother of a CEO, right? So all your kids, when they complain that you guys don't give them any time, that's me. Like I was literally 5 years old writing a letter to Santa at some point that I wanted my mom for Christmas. Wow. But yet I love my mother. She gave me a ton of business skills. And so that's a group of, that's my kind of most important topic for the groups of CEOs that I do globally and countrywide, because I feel that as a CEO, especially, you are a thought leader, you're in the room for a reason, but sometimes they also lose track of the very reason they build this business for.
That's so true.
Okay.
So what is it that they lose track of, in your opinion?
The reason, one of the main things they lose track of is the rocks in their business, right? We all say that our loved ones are some of our rocks. Our time with people who matters the most is one of our rocks. But yet, when it comes to building a business, those things get removed from the calendar the most. And to me, it's you will never be able to see your kid as a 12, 14, like my daughter's 13, right? I'll never get that time back. She'll never be playing that particular volleyball match in that location. She'll never be at that dance again. And if we truly start looking at those moments in our lives that make it worth everything, a lot of times those are the moments that get lost when we're building businesses.
So true. Yeah, you can get consumed in stuff that is urgent, but maybe not important, and you forget about the things that are important and just waiting for you. I wanted you to talk because I was inspired by, you mentioned being a 5-year-old talking to your mom, and I know she was like an amazing businesswoman, but maybe not around that much. And this is in Russia, and I know in your bio it said Eastern European, and I know that is we have to be careful with that right now. But
there's nothing going on there. I don't know why we're having to be.
Yeah, it's a perfect dinner conversation.
Yeah, whatever.
But I think it's awesome because Brian and I had the opportunity when we were in high school to go play baseball in Russia and teach Russians how to play baseball. And we had the most incredible experience with amazing people. I lived with the host family and just had an amazing time. And so I feel like we have a little bit of connection with that. But if you want to talk a little bit about your upbringing, and then Brian can tell us about our trip to Russia, which we have some stories there.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up, and it's interesting because I truly do have opportunity for dinner conversations since my dad is Polish Ukrainian, my mom's 100% Russian. So talk about being in the middle of everything that's happening in the world right now. And I mean, it's obviously very sad, and people talk and ask questions. But when I grew up there, obviously, I've seen it all, right? I've seen the corruption. I've seen what it takes to actually get stuff off the ground. My mom was a second largest business in the city that we were in. She was the third largest manufacturing plant in Russia when she was growing that. She ran it for 37 years. And I watched her truly build the business out on a limb. But I also saw how many obstacles she had to overcome with the government, with corruption, with, all the systems. So when you talk about U.S. being the land of opportunity, and no, I don't get paid to say that, it truly is. Because you can build something here on your own. I moved here when I was 16 with $450 in my pocket. Wow. And therefore, I was able to basically build everything from ground up. And to do something like that there, I would have to have the connections, the backing, if you will, whether it's monetary or otherwise. But again, just watching her build it, despite of all those things, was probably one of the most inspiring stories for me. But it also taught me the value of time versus money. Because if you have time, if you have money, but you don't have time, you just created a job.
I can't help but think that had to be a unique situation of a woman being in charge, in
Very
power.
Much so.
In
a patriarchal society where everybody bows down to male. I mean, definitely. And I think that's what erased so much of my own fears. I was 14, 15 years old, walking in the rooms all over Europe, just like this, full of male dominant leaders and negotiating $1 million contracts. And she basically completely eradicated any fears I had ever, because she was like, just go and do it, figure it out,
That's awesome. That was a topic of one of our last, when just the three of us got together, was how to give the tools to our kids to walk into a room and be confident and have a safety net, because they know that we're here, but also but have that example.
Yeah.
Right,
because they'll do what you do, not what you say, right?
Yes. Yes.
One of my memories of Russia with you, one thing that always sticks in my head every time I hear this word is we all were putting our stuff away, and they said, tomorrow morning, meet at 8 a.m. because we have an excursion. And you said, is that going to hurt? And every time I hear the word excursion now, I think of Brian Reid. But we did have an amazing, we were at the University of Moscow teaching kids.
And this was 1991. This is
during the whole craziness. The Soviet Union falling
Gorbachev
apart.
good or Gorbachev bad. It was we were being asked these questions.
Yeah, Russia in the 90s was wild.
Yeah, we had no idea.
Makes a lot of sense to just send you guys over there.
What were our parents?
What the fuck are we talking about?
Literally 6 months before
the
the coup.
good news, if something happened, they would never find them. So
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Although I almost didn't make it because we all packed up, and when I'm 15 years old, we get to New York, we start to get on the plane to go to Moscow, and I don't have my passport. My parents, I blame them because I was only 15, forgot to pack my passport. So I couldn't go, and my passport couldn't get there for 3 days. So my varsity high school baseball coach's wife stayed with me in New York for 3 days while everybody else went on excursions.
That was the original segment of Tim, the awkwardness of Tim.
Yes.
Awkward Tim stories.
Yes.
They started back in 91, But no, we went, spent 3 weeks there.
Yeah.
So, spent the majority of the time in Moscow. And then we did split. There was a group that went to St. Petersburg, and I went to Kiev.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was...
Kiev is absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
yeah.
it's gorgeous.
Yes,
absolutely.
Is chicken Kiev a thing?
It
Is
the
it?
chicken thing.
Yeah.
Yes, the chicken Kiev is everywhere. I think,
Is
even
it
in
really?
Russia. Yeah. You don't have to be in Kiev to have that.
I always want to know about the food, obviously, everywhere.
I just remember the vodka. I thought it was water. It
That
was on the table
first
like
time,
it was.
It's adult juice.
First time drinking. They did not card there nor care.
Right, because it's a completely different rules, right? Like, absolutely.
What is the drinking age there?
16.
16.
Oh,
Yes,
shit.
yes. And on top of it, yes, it's a lot more like laxed about everything. The Russians generally, I mean, I don't want to generalize for the whole culture, obviously, but for most part, they sort of say, as long as it's with us, we'd rather try, you do it in front of us.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
easier.
good philosophy.
Yeah.
And what about voting? Is there?
The voting is 18.
Okay.
So like the legal independent age there is 18. So yes, you can absolutely vote. But yeah, as we all know, there are challenges to that.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good way. That's a good way to
Hence
put it.
Everywhere.
Yes. But I mean, that's the thing too, though. Like people always mix up culture, people, and politics,
Right.
and that's definitely not the same thing, right? And even though you have to remember, like this is a country that's been generationally ruled by czars. So when you take generations of people that have been in that mentality and then you give them full freedoms, they don't always translate immediately. And sometimes, like my brother and I talk about all the time, that it's going to take years. Like, right, his generation traveled the world. His generation speaks almost fluent English because, like, when I was speaking of Russia in the 90s, that's when McDonald's first came in. And I remember some of my friends, because I had a tutor since I was 7, hence almost no accent. But overall, you could not apply to McDonald's unless you spoke 3 languages. And so that wasn't even a thing, right? And so everybody spoke a language, and that was just culturally accepted.
The English they spoke then, because it was big, they wanted your backpack so bad. They said, bring backpacks because
And
these
jeans,
Russian
Levi's.
and jeans. and
Levi's, yes.
But I remember trying to talk to somebody in my best Russian, and he was just like, well, what is it like? Maybe you like to change your Jansport. He would say change instead of trade, and it was always a Jansport. Maybe you like to change your Jansport.
You bring Levi?
Yes. Oh my
Did
gosh.
they ask you guys that?
100 of 1,000. If you had Levi's jeans, you were the coolest kid on
We
the
brought a
block.
suitcase full of Levi's just to give away,
yeah.
just to barter.
Yeah.
We ended up with vodka.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Vodka and hats. A lot
Oh,
of
yeah, the
hats.
fur hats, yes.
We got the
Yeah.
furry hat
Yeah.
and the Russian and the dolls.
And the dolls,
Yeah.
yes.
The
yes.
matryoshkas,
Yeah.
yes.
Is what they're called?
Yeah, the nesting dolls. The
Yes, the
matryoshka,
nesting dolls, yep,
Yes.
yep.
Well,
Oh, that's fun.
my family was a family entrepreneurs. My uncle actually had his first business in Singapore, so he could bring like Sony and Levi's. And my brother had it I remember I had my first Puma tracksuit, and I was like everybody at school knew who I was. It was yellow. I was the coolest kid ever. I never played tennis in my life. Never even came close to that. But nobody cared.
Didn't even know what a Puma
Didn't-
was.
Exactly. It did not matter because it's, as long as you own anything at all that's brand, you could not. No amount of money could buy that amount of happiness. I can tell you.
But you mentioned before we went on the air, I think it was before we went on the air, you said when you were 5 years old, you wrote a letter to Santa.
Father Frost in Russia.
What is it?
Father Frost. We have Father Frost.
Father Frost.
Father Frost.
I think that's a rapper too. I
like that.
Yeah.
Frost. The
Yeah.
ice around his
It
neck.
could be.
Yeah. I went to high school with this dude, Steve Frost, and we knew his dad. I'm pissed I didn't call him Father Frost.
Never too late.
But your letter, what you wanted for is it Christmas? Do they call it Christmas?
Yeah. We have, well, we get gifts for New Year's. Our Christmas is later. So Christmas is like here, you get together with family,
Yeah.
but the main gifts happen actually New Year's Eve.
New Year's.
Yeah.
So you asked Father Frost
Yeah.
for, how did you word it? You said you
Literally,
want
it
your
was
mom.
a list, just like your kids give you lists for Christmas. My number one thing on the list was my mom. And when the kindergarten teacher read it in front of everybody out loud, I remember crying very vividly. It's kind of a sad story.
And then
but-
how did your mom react to that?
I cried. And I mean, my mom definitely struggled with a fair amount of guilt. And honestly, that's what sent me into training CEOs. That's why I became so passionate, because for me, it became truly a personal topic. Because I can tell you guys another story. And like my mom, it's a good thing she doesn't speak fluent English. But like we've talked about it since. But when my daughter was born, my brother flew here and he said, we love mom. And she's given us the best entrepreneurial skills, business skills, hands down. But please do everything different than she did.
Yeah.
And that was his meaning while you're building a business, because she was an amazing business person. She was always out on the limb, making things happen. But in terms of balance with time and us at home, we probably didn't connect to her till we were both in like high school.
And what about your dad?
So my dad, I have a very interesting dichotomy in my family. My dad was a government official, so he was super by the book. So you had one parent that was go do anything, be anything, try everything. And then the second one who's like a truly Russian government official, very detail-oriented, very analytical, former engineer. So yeah, I was a total Russian princess on one hand. I had to sew and paint and do ballet and ice skating and play piano, whether I liked it or not. I hate all those things except for ice skating. And then I had my mom who was like, go explore, try things. And so they definitely had a fair amount of tiffs because of that.
And if you were asking for your mom, you mentioned your brother, your dad worked for the government. Was your dad just like, yeah, she ain't here, so
yeah, my dad was always
fucking
around.
deal with it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Hey, give me a hug.
yeah, like,
No,
hey,
no,
I'm right here. Do you want to go to
Yeah.
the new McDonald's where they speak 8 languages? Like,
My dad was never like very touchy-feely, so he was always, and neither was my brother. So my grandfather was the one who was like emotionally intelligent in the family, for the lack of better words. And I spent most of my summers till I was 12 with my grandparents. So my grandfather definitely played a lot of that, like moral support, emotional support, because yeah, my dad was very dry and, he was there. Yeah, he fed us. He made sure like I had the horrible ponytails that every father did at once
Guilty.
in their life. They may be a little sideways, but we'll put a bow and make it all better. So yeah, and he was there always. Like that was the cool part about him. But then unfortunately they had like a really horrible divorce when I was a freshman in high school. So that pretty much ended most of my relationship with my dad.
I was going to say, it kind of sounds like to me that maybe there was an opportunity to never have kids. She was at working. He's
for
kind
sure.
of just straight laced.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I lived with my grandparents till we were like, I was 7, my brother was 14. So yeah, and then we moved out on our own. So I would say the most of my childhood, my grandparents played a much more prominent part in that, for sure.
And who came with you to the U.S. at age 16?
Nobody. I got on the plane. I called my mom, actually. I got on the plane. I came initially as a camp counselor to work here during the summer. And then I met a college professor and she was like, well, you already speak English. Why wouldn't you just transfer? So I have 2 bachelors, one from Russia, one here. And she was like, just transfer your credits. Let's, do another bachelor's. And I called my mom and she was crying. And she was like, we don't have any money because it was Russia in the 90s. And she was going through all kinds of stuff with her factory. And then I called my uncle, the one who had businesses in Singapore. And if you know anything about my uncle, I have since paid him back with percentages. So I literally borrowed $450 and I stayed. And I bought my first car. I met another Russian girl. She had another $400. We rented an apartment and that started the whole thing.
Wow.
And that
16 years old.
16
And that was
years
here
old.
in Arizona?
It was
Or no?
actually in Iowa.
In Iowa.
So we were on a lottery.
Iowa. Where have you end up?
Mom, I'm going to Iowa.
Desmond
the
has-
goddamn American dream. There's potatoes there. There's
America.
people that are
corn.
actually at
There is-
home.
And the
Yeah.
corn. The corn.
There's corn. And it was easy. It was very chill. And yes, so no, she cried. She was like, your brother is supposed to move. Why is it you who is moving? But yeah, I was just determined. I'm like, I feel I can build something here on my own and we'll see what happens. It can be worse. And
And then what happened? So now here, you got off the plane. Was there someone there to pick you up?
yeah, it's a pretty funny story. They picked us up in Chicago on a school bus. So I don't know how many of you have ridden a school bus bus, but 4.5 hour ride on a school bus is not the dream
Probably
trip.
like these chairs
Yeah,
that you
right.
and I are on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, but we were excited. Like, we didn't care. We just went. And then they dropped us into camp that looked much different than the pictures they sent us because it was a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And then when we got there, it was literally a tiny old camp in the middle of Iowa. And
But what was the camp for, though?
like, it was for kids. So basically, we were camp counselors.
But why did they? I mean, you're in Iowa. Why did they need a Russian to come be a camp counselor?
was
They,
hard. Times
so
were
they
I mean,
had,
what was like?
they had an exchange program with my university in Russia. It was almost like a lottery system. So you couldn't choose where you went. They would place you, like the camp counselors would interview you from the camps, and then they said, we're bidding, you were sort of like I'm not trying to be offensive, but it was sort of like bidding on horses, like we won this one.
Yeah.
That one over there.
I mean, all jokes aside, though, like what I made during summer was basically double my mom's salary in the 90s. So of course I wanted to come here.
And
but
your mom was running a factory.
my mom was running a factory, but just so you all know how much it was like $458. So we were a lot cheaper than American labor, like a lot.
What the?
A lot cheaper, yes.
Now, so tell me this, like, there's the stereotype out there, like, you can order a wife from Russia, right?
You
There's
can.
there's websites you could just go on
100%,
there and
yes.
order a wife,
Yes,
right?
100%.
Do you think that it was your upbringing and how hard your mom worked, and your dad worked for the government, so he worked hard too,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Trying to keep everything, I'm sure, straight,
Together.
right?
Yeah.
If that would have been different, and they might have been an auto mechanic and a checker of groceries, could you just like snap your fingers, been on that website, and be that person?
Anybody can, honestly.
Like, is that? I've never known if it's an actual.
Oh, it is
thing.
an actual thing. Yeah. So my best friend happens to be an immigration attorney here in Arizona. And actually, funny story, when I first got married and I moved to Arizona, I worked with her for a couple of days. She knows that I hated those 2 days because I'm definitely not any type of attorney ever. But she used to do fiancé visas for some of those agencies. So it is very much real. I don't think it's as prominent now just because, again, now the borders are open. I mean, not right now with the war happening, but before people were able to fly. Now everybody can go anywhere. But like I would say like early 80s, all the way to mid 90s, it was definitely a thing.
I mean, it was in magazines. It was
Yeah.
like you
Oh,
put it in the
100%.
back of a magazine. Call this number. We'll
Yeah,
get you.
you can go on the website and here's the catalog of 3,000 some women, and
The original Tinder.
And and there's just like some creepy white guy accountant that's 58.
That can't
That's
get
like
away.
that
in
had
Texas, somewhere in the
right.
middle
That's
of
just
a
like,
small
well, I
town.
fucking might as well do this.
Yes,
like,
yes, for sure. And they didn't even need to speak English. That's the best part. They just smile and nod. But I can tell you, I've been asked that question many a time when I was still married, and people would ask my ex-husband openly, like, like, how did you get her here? And he would make a joke, like, yes, she was on page 27.
All right, so let's go back to business. Let's get back on the tracks, on the rails. Yeah.
well, so can we just? I want to pick up at Iowa. All right, so we had a great summer. You're like,
Yes.
yeah, bitch, I made more money than you. Like
Yes.
giving your mom the finger.
Yes, she cried.
And, yeah, she cried because you made more money than her.
Right.
And then that summer was over, and then you're like,
America.
all right.
What else is out there?
All right, potatoes and corn around here.
Yeah.
Like, what happened then?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I literally went for a dental appointment in a dental school and met my ex-husband who happened to be moving. Like, we were just dating, but I thought he was a player, and he knows that story too, because he had all these women around him at all times, and then he wanted to move to Arizona. And I was like, well, I'm not moving for a boy. So
Well, hold on. Time out. Don't go so fast. Time out.
He's
time
like,
out.
I have questions.
Hold on. I got
Listen,
yeah.
He loves the details.
Yeah, I got. It's just like I
Get
gotta
the
know
tea
this
ready.
shit. I gotta know this shit. Time out. You were 16.
Well, I lived there for 5 years. So
She was 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
I was.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I was
were
21.
you never left?
No.
So you were a
Oh,
camp
yeah.
counselor, and then was like,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna hang out.
No, because remember, I met the professor that first year, and she offered me, she
Got it.
would
So
help
now
me get
you're-
into
okay,
college.
okay,
So
so
I
that
got
kept
into
you there.
college. I stayed. So, but hang on, let me back up for a second. So first time I came when I was 16, I left first year. So I flew back to Russia, started conversations with that professor. She's like, come back. If you come back next year, let's definitely talk about getting you into school.
Wow.
So the second time I came was basically December, right before I turned 18. And so that's when I called my mom, and my birthday was January 24th. I called my mom, I think like very early February. I'm like, I'm 18. I can do whatever at this point.
Wow.
I love you. Don't be upset. I'll be back. I'm staying. And that's when I stayed.
Say,
I'll be back. I'm
again.
definitely not going to be back.
to visit. Yes. I never said I'll be back. No, I told her straight up, I'm never coming back.
All right,
That
so
was
then
like,
then you're 21.
right.
And then-
So he wanted to move to Arizona.
Wait. Hold on. Don't
Yes.
go too fast. I got to understand this shit.
Yes.
Was he the dentist?
He was a dentist. Well, he was a dental student
Dental
at the
student,
time.
okay.
Yes.
And so then he
we
said,
kind of started dating,
okay,
and he
all right,
said, "Come on
all right.
out. I'm moving to Arizona with all my friends, and it's super enticing." He brought me out here, and it was like December. I thought the most beautiful
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Yes. And then when I came back and moved in June, I was like, "What the heck
yeah.
was I thinking?"
Yeah, then you
when I
started
moved?
melting.
Yes. And I realized that it's not actually that weather all the time. So and before I moved though, I was like, I'm not moving for a boy. And I went to look at local universities. I went to U of A, I went to SU, and U of A made me an irresistible offer. They said, hey, we are building a diplomatic program with Russia, and we would love for you to come and spearhead that, basically, they were like, we can have you teach entrepreneurship, teach Russian in the Russian department, and help us build the program, and we will give you free tuition. So I was like, well, I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah.
That's
Another
how
recruit U of A stole away from ASU.
yeah. So it was pretty awesome because I got to go to school for free, get my master's degree, stay in Tucson, go to Russia, and on most of it, like I will tell you this, to go to Russia as a foreigner is a very different experience, because when I was going there with groups for the diplomatic academy, I would take students from all over US and Canada, and some of the things we got to experience because of them, I never got to experience as a citizen, for sure. Oh yeah, I got access to like vaults, jewelry vaults we've never known existed. We've gotten to go on some excursions.
Some excursions.
Yeah. Did you get hurt?
Watch out.
But you see, everybody was like, how are you not scared? I mean, I was young, right? I was like 23, taking all these kids to Russia. And I was like, well, I wasn't scared. Every time we would basically unload in the airport, I would tell them, I need you to understand something. There is no common system in Russia like it's in the US. So if something happens with you, we'll never find you.
But welcome.
But and with that on, have fun.
Have fun.
And we're probably going to give you way too much vodka.
Right.
We're going to really make this
Yeah.
precarious for you.
Yeah. Well, I told them if you lose your passport, you're here for life, so it's on you.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Whatever you do, I recommend be wise. Yeah.
Do you remember going to the opera when we
Yes, the Bolshoi Theater.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Another
Like,
excursion.
Oh,
Another
yes.
excursion,
The
yes.
opulence.
You can get
I
hurt.
mean,
Yeah.
the level of opulence in some of those museums. I mean, it's gold. It's
incredible.
all encrusted in gold and
Yeah.
silver and actual real jewel.
But
and-
yet your mom was making $400 a month.
well, I mean, Russia in the
Mm-hmm.
90s was a wild thing.
The
you
haves
know?
and have-nots.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's literally
Yes,
like
absolutely. Well, imagine she was a CEO of a company for basically at that point like 32 years, and they came in and said, "This is now not a government. Basically, it's not a state company anymore. It's now a private company. Here's your new boss. Good luck."
So everything she built, they just took it over.
Oh,
and
of
said
course.
no.
Yeah. She basically, the last 4 or 5 years, she exited at year 5. She was basically someone's second in command. And it was your choice. You could leave
Right.
and not have any pension or any state support, or you can stay on and
Wow.
play along. So
Like a change in government here, and then
Yeah.
Tim, good work with some bros. We'll take it from here.
yeah.
Yes.
We do
got
need
this.
an administrative assistant right over there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you go stir the green chili?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was sort of a vet. And most of her friends who were in any type of first, second, third in command, all were in the same position. You either exit involuntarily or you voluntarily accept the new rule, and that's it. Yeah.
Unreal.
It was the wildest thing, for sure.
So then you're 23, ASU, or
Yep.
U of A.
Yep.
You got your master's. You're living in Tucson at this point.
I'm going between Tucson and Phoenix. I know literally every little corner of that road. So, yes.
Was your husband in Tucson? Did
He
you guys
was
get
here
married
in
right
Phoenix.
away? He was
Yeah.
in
Well, we
Phoenix,
didn't
so-
get married right away, but pretty quick, within like 6 months. And so he lived in Phoenix. I would go between Phoenix and Tucson. And then he was like, that's probably not a good arrangement. So after a couple of years, I started looking looking at how I can transition to Phoenix. Nobody was hiring a higher ad. And then I ended up with Gateway Community College as a college instructor. And then they have like an early college high school on premises. So I was doing both. And in the process of that, realized that my mom's joke about me being the worst employee of all times was true. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can work for anybody. I actually officially worked for a company for 1 week after college. I started on a Monday and quit on Friday. True story, was an insurance company. I'm not going to name them. They're a national chain, but I was very, very definitely not employable. And
So wait, you worked for an insurance company for 5 days. You worked at a law firm for 2 days.
yes, I am definitely
Just
not
building a real pedigree at this point.
Yeah, my resume is super impressive. If you ever want to see it, yes, I will never be hired by anyone officially. So yeah, and my mom always joked with my brother and I that we'll never be employable because of the experience we've had with her. And yeah, so basically after teaching there, I launched my first company, which was called Rising Tycoons. And we took kids who were 14 to 18 years old and taught them how to make ideas marketable and pitch them in front of the real CEOs. Like you guys, nice. And they would pitch for real cash. We were like miniature Shark Tank, basically. They had to go through the whole process, pitch, and they had to pitch for real cash. And so that's when we grew like crazy. That's when I was nominated as Phoenix 40 Under 40 because we put over 10,000 educators and almost 25,000 kids for my program in 3.5 years.
Wow,
like we were literally
awesome.
startup on steroids. But they were amazing. They were the best kids ever. And I loved it, but I knew it wasn't going to be like a legacy company because we were pay per play. And it's very hard with schools as education doesn't really have money, as we all know that. So I thought I either have to go nonprofit route or bring a partner, which I didn't want to do. And so just like any responsible adult, everything happened at once. I had a divorce. My daughter was 4.5. I decided to start Rising Tycoons. Kind of everything happened at once. And then I don't remember the next 3 years when we were building that. And that's when I also realized that I don't want to do it to my daughter. You know, I was catching myself in that same place where I was not building based on the rocks and the values that I wanted to create. And it just so happened that Discover Education saw me present and they said, we can't buy out you as an entity, but we would love to buy your program out and bring you on because we have a STEM program, but we don't have the business program. And so I exited into that and then launched I Start First, the company that I have now, sort of more like a joke, to be honest, because I've never worked with women. I grew up with a brother. I was sort of a half tomboy most of my life. And I was complaining literally to one of my guy friends. I'm like, well, now, I'm exiting with Rising Tycoons. It's going to be awesome. But I kind of want to work with women because even when we were running Rising Tycoons, I had no girls. Like my first year in the program, we had no girls. And I was going around all the nonprofits in Phoenix going, hey, we have to have girl leaders. Like, what is happening? Where's all the women, right? And he's like, well, don't you start first? And I'm like, I do. I start first. And he bought my domain in that coffee shop, like literally pushed the computer over, was like, here, this is your new business. I start first. And I started it as a hashtag, speaking to women leaders at different conferences and male leaders being allies. And that's how everything kind of went down.
I've been following her, ever since she came to speak to our group. And what's the big seminar called that you host each year?
I Start First Summit.
I Start First Summit. Like, it's amazing. Like, I'm sure you guys will follow her now. Her Instagram's amazing for all of our followers out there. But just all these women dressed in pink, like the speakers like Tracy O'Malley has been there, and you just see tears in the crowd. Like, it's like a motivational, like a Tony Robbins type event for all women, badass business women that are just trying to do it, and she leads all of them.
Well, because the deal was especially I started working with larger companies, right? Every time I would go into like leadership teams, people would tell me, if you put badass women in the room and they're like all A-type personalities, they're all gonna fight, they're gonna be catty, and I'm like, watch me do it. So we bring 200 women every year into the room like this, and I go in different companies and literally teach women that it's collaboration over competition, and men too, but especially I feel like with women, because there's a lot of that mentality, and I'm not trying to ruffle feathers, but I'm not apologizing either. There is a lot of mentality with women leaders once they get to the higher positions that, hey, I clawed my way to this, so you can too. And I don't believe in that. I think you have to be collaborative and supportive, and you shouldn't be you shouldn't be repeating the past.
Are we doing a better job in corporate America right now? Is it getting better?
Yes and no. Yes, it is. I would say it is getting better. There's definitely more attention that's there. But I also, you say I have very different mentality, and that's a topic that I haven't trained with Tim's group, I think, but I do train a lot of CEOs on that topic, which is gender intelligence. I have a very different approach. I think that the only way you can build unity and understanding is not by pointing fingers or men do this and women do this. It's how do we bring best of both genders to the table and have them play at the best of their abilities. And I think that's the part that we need to do better with in any setting, corporate or not, because we don't even understand how we are wired differently a lot of times, right? And you guys have all been there with your spouses, with your loved ones, right? When women, we have to say, 2,000 words on average, and that's before breakfast.
Yeah.
And you guys are like, life's good, everything's good, so.
Good. Brian, can you relate to this at all? At home at all?
Good.
Yeah.
He's married to a doctor. Sure.
Right. But
And
that's
what's
the-
her reward average? Words per day.
And that's the thing, right? Like it's common, but I feel like in corporate, a lot of times in corporate culture, it becomes like offensive, right? But we have to realize that corporate culture was built in 60s and 70s when women were designed to stay at home. And most of the male competencies in corporate culture, like 8 o'clock hustles or Monday meetings, were there when women were walking kids to the bus, right? And now they're driving them to school, getting them ready, getting everybody ready. So a lot of the competencies are not there because we want to offend women. They're there because they've been there for years. And all we're doing is just learning how to change with the culture and with times.
Playing to the gender strengths, like
100%.
and individual strengths along with that, but playing with the strengths.
But without
Not
pointing
really.
fingers, right? Like,
Without
I feel
relying
like
on-
it's so easy, and it became like culturally to a degree, like it's a little bit, I feel like perpetuated almost in the culture now, where we're so good at finger pointing, and everything we do, we take it to the extremes, or we're now independent, so that's it. We don't need men, or we're now this, we don't need women. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. It's how we do that together.
One of the things that you asked, like what she talked to our group about. So for those of you listening on Apple or Spotify, you can't see this on YouTube. You can, like, this is my little yellow pad, and I just wrote a couple notes for today. But usually this was a page or two of to-do tasks. Like, this was my way of staying organized, is like everything I have to do, from water the plants at home to type up a quarterly report, big things, little things, everything is on here. And she transformed my mind and my life with time block scheduling. And it's this whole concept. Now our whole company does it because she came and taught it to everybody at some Burrows. But you want to talk a little bit about that, because it's kind of
Sure.
like
Yeah.
revolutionary.
Well, to me, it's the most honest system that exists with time, right? Because we all bullshit each other and ourselves about time all the time. We all like trying to fit in 37 tasks into an hour, and then we're like, oh my gosh, they're not fitting. Or I have a laundry list on my yellow pad of 27 items. I've been transferring them over day by day, month by month. They've never been done ever, but I'm still going to add more to them, as if somehow magically the time is going to expand and I'll be able to fit stuff in. So with time block schedule, you're basically responsible for every minute of every day, and everything is in your calendar. So if I didn't have this podcast today, it wouldn't be happening. And when I have this podcast, I know that it's 90 minutes with a 30-minute drive. So I am intentional about what I'm doing with the drive, what I'm doing while I'm here, what I'm like after this, I'm going to pick up my daughter. So I'm done with working for today. So the time block for me personally, why I'm so adamant about that, especially as leaders, because a lot of times, like I said, we don't treat our time with honesty, and we feel like we can fit everything in at once. And then guess who is, again, getting the short end of the stick is the people who are closest to you, right? Like, I have this story that I share. It's more like a comparison. I'm like, it's like going out to eat, and when you guys go out to eat with your friends, and when you come home and you bring leftovers, sometimes your families get those leftovers. Like, you are the leftovers because you're so spent while you're gone, and then you come home with what's left, and I'm sorry, nobody likes leftovers that much.
Right. I think the biggest thing to me with that, with putting everything in my calendar, is like on my list, there's going to be things I enjoy doing, like a podcast or like reading sales reports, whatever. Like, I look forward to that. things like collect tax documents for the accountant just gets moved to the next page and then the next page.
Yeah.
And because the things you enjoy, I'm just going to knock that out real quick. I'm going to type up our guest bio, whatever. That's fun stuff. But the stuff that you don't want to do just keeps getting passed on. And sometimes it's important stuff that you
So
just
what do
don't
you do now then?
So now you put every task into your calendar, and you call, what is it called? Like your
The
zone of
GSD
like,
block, the GSD block, get shit done, get stuff done block, when they actually work on things that need to be done.
Yeah,
So
like
he
my
can't
prime
avoid it.
time zone is like from 9 a.m. to 11
Oh,
a.m.
you're talking
like,
power hour.
Power hour,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's where like my coffee's kicked in. Hopefully I got exercise. For me, it's 9 to 11. So if I have tasks that are like challenging or I need to be focused on, instead I take them from this list and I put them in Tuesday at 9:30 because then something that's a little less taxing, I can do that in the afternoon, but I'll schedule it from 3 to 3:15. So everything from here is now on my calendar. So then you have it scheduled, so you have to do it.
And
then.
you're doing this to the calendar. Is it digital or are you still handwriting?
Digital, no,
It
digital,
can be
yeah.
both. It doesn't matter. Like
Okay.
I have people who do it paper. I have people who do it digital. I have people who do it both. I don't care how you do it, but it needs to be in the actual
It has to be
calendar.
in the calendar.
And
But
is that
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No.
Is that primarily like C-level and above, like owners and above?
No, we train like I usually do managers and up because I'm sorry, like no offense to Tim, but usually the managers will be a much better ripple effect than he is, right? Like I hope nobody gets access to him. Like if he's doing his calendar correctly and he's doing the blocks and everything, his time should be the most protected time in the company, right? So there should be like 3 people who have access to him. But with managers, they will be a much bigger ripple effect on the teams because they're the ones that work with everyone down. And that's the group that does most like day-to-day operations.
One thing that you would appreciate too, being in corporate America, like meetings, like she calls it blocks, like 15-minute blocks or segments. Like meetings shouldn't be an hour and a half that can be done in 15 minutes. Like stop, cut all the BS.
Well, the deaf by meetings kill me. So yeah, you see, we don't use hours like the way I train all the teams, and that's what Tim was referring to. We do units. So every hour is basically units of 15 minutes. So every hour only has 4 units, right? Because it's so easy to say, I have 60 minutes. Let me give you all my, let me give you 40 of that. But when you only have 4 units and I ask you for 2, which would be 30 minutes, you're like, wait, you're asking for half of my time. You're asking for half of my units. It better be earth-shattering if I'm giving you that time. So all the teams that we train, we reteach them into units because they have to understand how valuable that time is. And then those death by meetings, like I'm not naming the company. This funny story for all of you. I flew to meet with this company to do the training on optimization for their team. And they were like, so the meeting's going to be at 9. They're like, what would you like for lunch? And I go, wait, we're doing
what?
the morning huddle that now spreads into lunch. I'm like, what are we doing? I'm like, there is only 11 people on the team. I can't possibly imagine what are we talking about. So, but that's so common, right? In corporate America, I feel like sometimes we don't have time to work because
Yeah, you're just in
everybody is in
meetings.
meetings.
Can I just cry for a little while?
I will.
Like if I just start bawling, is that
That's
okay?
Well, and the other
I'll
thing
give
is-
you a hug. I'll come over and give you a hug.
is like inviting to meetings or being invited to meetings that you don't need to be at.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Nick, sorry.
I'm starting to feel like
From Eastern Europe and witnessing your mother's challenges.
We have Nick's tears rolling down.
I've been in sales for 24 years. I've been
And
with
especially for sales teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with my company for 17 years. I've been promoted 7 times. I run North American sales now.
Yes.
Everyone has access to everything that I do,
We should talk.
and they ain't give a fuck about no units. They ain't give a fuck about no units.
I need
I
2 damn
know,
units.
But here's
Yeah, dude, I'm out here fucking doling out units. I got fucking 150 units a day.
he's like, I am a dealer.
Yeah, I got fucking. Hold on, I might have a unit in my pocket right now.
Just need a little unit to myself.
Yeah,
Nick, I don't want to see the unit in your pocket.
I can't.
Thank you.
Yes.
I need 1 bathroom unit, please.
Yeah, I don't even have a bathroom unit.
Oh my God, now I'm crying.
Everybody just
God.
needs you all the
No,
time.
it's just,
But that's horrible.
I don't know.
That is
Yeah,
horrible.
it's
That is a
horrible, and we
horrible
have
thing.
meetings about the meetings.
Absolutely.
Like-
Yes. That is
And I swear to God, 7 out of every 10 meetings, I want to. Why am I fucking here?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Are you asking something of me? Am I supposed to do something?
Yes.
You need to
Yes.
be in on this one.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
stay right there.
yeah, we should. Nick and I are gonna have another episode.
You're gonna have exactly.
Yeah, I might just give you a blank check and say, come fix us.
Yes, I will come. Yes, I'm
Bring
in.
your units.
You
Sign
guys
me
should
in.
bring her in.
Yes, I would love to come in. But here's my biggest thing, right? If you like, again, my biggest sell. People are like, how do you convince CEOs? I said, I just calculate the amount of hours when 12 people are sitting in the room and 3 are participating in the meeting. I just literally run numbers for them and tell them, this is how much money you paid out today. This is
I
how
do it all
much
the time.
money. Yes. And
do
it's
it all
just
the time.
unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate that we're literally experiencing death by meetings, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, there's no need.
And they're not even in-person meetings now. It's just
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
we could just send this link and I'll see all you fuckers' faces. Look at, your camera's not on. What are you doing? You gonna turn your camera on? Are you not camera ready? Is it too early? Oh, it's 6:30 in Arizona. Did you not eat your coffee yet? You're not camera ready?
Oh my gosh.
Dude, I'm not even making this shit up.
Yes.
I know.
This is
I
real.
can
That's
tell
your
you with
life.
100% certainty, and I have clients like this year. My average clients start at like $1.5 million, but I have $2 billion companies as clients this year. So I can tell you with 100% certainty, no offense to Nick, sales teams are the worst. They're absolutely freaking worst when it comes to planning time. And I love when I talk to sales managers and they're like, my schedule is so busy, Olenka. And I'm like, well, what's on it? You know, I want to know how much revenue you're producing. Like, what's the actual conversion of your busy, right? Because when people tell me I'm busy, to me, that means they have zero intention and there is very little productivity. That just means they threw a bunch of shit on their calendar and it makes them feel good.
Well, Olenka, I'm really busy. So
That's actually Nick walked into the podcast late, actually, because he was busy.
I'm on a call in my car.
Yeah, I
At
know.
You were a
5:30.
unit late.
Yeah, you are a unit late.
Yeah, I was a quarter unit late.
Why'd you roll us back? What do you say you do here?
So my wife's, I actually want to talk about stay-at-home moms.
I actually want to talk about your wife because now I know what you do for a living.
Yes.
I really want to find out how she feels about all this.
Well, I work from home, and I don't know if you can tell or not. I have a little vibrato in my voice. So she's like, yeah, you just shake the walls all day while she's like cooking or cleaning or doing whatever.
Yes, and is she a priority on your calendar?
During the day while I'm working?
Anytime.
No, as soon as I'm done working, yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
you don't take evening calls or weekend calls?
Every once in a while.
Okay.
Very,
Nick
very,
does
very
have
rare.
an uncanny ability, I think all of us in this room, to compartmentalize.
I love that.
Like when
well,
you're
all
in it,
men
you're
have
in
that
it. but-
ability. That's not special. I want to know if you have the ability to stick with the rocks and the values in your calendar. Is that really a priority?
Yep.
Yeah, I was the baseball. I mean, so I'll probably die of a heart attack here shortly. But I was the baseball coach. I was at every practice. You know, I was.
that's awesome.
You know,
I love
and
that.
you know, my
Yeah.
daughter and
The
cheerleading
boundaries.
and soccer and
I love that.
weekends and all of that stuff.
That's
like,
perfect.
I mean, that was. I'm the youngest of 4. My dad was a cop. My mom stayed home with 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's family's from Poland. My dad's family is from Germany.
Love
Like, you
that.
know, very Eastern European. But they had 3 kids quickly when they were 19 years old, and then they took 13 years off.
Yeah.
So I had the benefit of my dad being at everything, and my 3 siblings did not have that benefit because
Right.
my dad had to work 4 jobs.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, whatever that was. So I saw what good looked like, and then I heard what it didn't look like
Right,
because they didn't, you know, they wanted their dad, right? But he was like, all right, do you also want the house?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you want that house, do you
Be
want
at every game.
do you want the food that's in that house?
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
this is what we have to do. So
Absolutely.
I'm very sensitive to all of those subjects based on my own personal experience. And I think I learned because of what I was able to experience. Then I was like, I tell my team, so I have 75 people in my organization. I tell my team, We don't miss first days of school. We don't miss donuts with dad. We do not miss the dance recitals. I don't give a shit when it is or what you're doing. You will wake up the next day and work 10 times harder if you know that you have the flexibility to do these things. If you're being ruled with an iron fist or a thumb that's on your neck at all times and that you got to sneak around, you will wake up the next day and sneak around too.
Right.
So try to make that a very standard within my organization.
But and
that's
just
huge.
to your point of like you being, or all of us being dads that try to do everything, but also work hard too. When there is wasted time in the day, it drives you crazy because you know that could have been productive, and now you can be more present when you're home or get home earlier. But when it's like wasted time, and then you actually have to do the work that was talked about in the meeting, and then it could possibly get into dinner or coaching, whatever. That's what is kind of infuriating to me, or has been in the past.
Oh yeah, when you have that value of the time, and I love that you said that. I think it becomes almost unbearable to see the time being wasted, and that's to your earlier point, right? When you have these meetings and you're like, really, why am I here? It makes it a lot harder to watch, for sure. Yeah.
So
Another thing that was just mind-boggling to me is when you talked about time and efficiency with our group and with the Sombreros group. How many times a day do we pick up our phones?
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, how many times an average American touches their phone? Just take a wild guess. Tim knows, don't answer.
I won't answer. Do you know how many times?
touches?
Touches, just not even with purpose, but just like emotional support animal to make sure it's still there.
6.
Wait, per day?
Per day, per day.
By the way, that's per hour.
Oh, that's
With this segment right
He's
now.
hoping
right?
yeah.
I jumped in my car this morning to go get coffee and left my phone at home.
How did it feel?
Oh my God, I felt
7
awkward.
stages of grief.
I know where I'm going. Oh.
Next thing you know, you didn't know what to do. You're buying
Yeah,
less
right,
coffees.
I didn't get my rewards points because I
Yeah.
didn't have my phone to go.
Shoot.
Yeah, so it's not 6, it's a lot more.
It's higher than 6.
Yes, take a wild
Per
guess.
day, 24
Per day.
hours?
Yes. Take a wild guess.
16 are awake.
I mean, 100 plus.
Tim?
I mean, it wasn't like over 1,000, right?
Yeah, it's over 1,000. It's about 1,052 times on average
In a day.
in a day, just to touch it. Yes, I recently had a meeting.
Touch it.
Yeah, just to make sure it's there. I literally recently had a meeting, and this gentleman sat like this. He sat with his hand on the phone the whole time, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I pulled it, if he's gonna cry, because this is literally like emotional support that he had under his hand. Yeah, people don't understand like the addictive qualities.
So,
It's crazy.
talk to us about that. Like,
Yes.
are you talking about that now?
Oh,
And are you talking about
1000%. I
like
talk
putting it
about
away, or what are you saying?
Yeah, so like with my daughter, I have a rule when we have quality time, not because I don't have the discipline, but I'm teaching her that. We actually put that away in another room. So we're not even allowed to have it in the same room just for that purpose. And she honestly, she was like super honest about it. She's like, Mom, for the first couple of months, like my brain was going to it. If it's like, okay, what's happening? Obviously with me, it's going there too. So it took a while. But there are a lot of CEOs I work with who literally have a couple phones. It takes us about 90 days to win them off of one. And then I have CEOs who literally we have to put their phones away in like locker boxes and safes so they can't touch it. And to your point, right? If you leave your house, like if you, I love how I talk about this and people are always like, oh yeah, it's not that bad. I'm like, go ahead, give me a phone, go away for a couple hours. Let's see how not bad it is. So that's to all the parents out there, like quit it. Like seriously, quit the whole story of let me take the device away from a kid, because you guys don't understand the psychological damage you're doing when you're doing this. The kids have addiction, and just like all adults have addiction to the device. So you can't just take it away, because how about you? I always tell parents, if you're going to do this, do it yourself first. Let me take your phone away for 7 days and let's see how y'all do. And if you can't do it, so yeah, with kids, you have to basically have conversations with them. You can't just take it.
Do you integrate that with the block system throughout
100%,
the day? Like,
yes. You have
this
to have-
block is no phone. I'm not touching
Well,
it.
ideally, you should have family time when you don't have your phone in the same room. Like I said, if you wake up every morning, you're still the person who grabs the phone before the human. Same thing. Not a great idea, right? But because it's there is a study that it's been done by Harvard Research right before COVID, and they basically proved that the reason we are so addicted to the device is because every time we touch it, it releases the same amount of dopamine in your brain as cocaine. So whether or not you like to admit it, it's super useful, but it's also extremely, extremely addictive. So you have to be smart about it.
If I went to the store, just to the store, to the grocery store, without my phone, how would I call Julie 7 times to ask if it's almond milk unsweetened, organic, vanilla unsweetened, vanilla sweetened, like
Right.
unsalted butter, salted?
Yeah, exactly.
But like, there's just so many things, so many addictions, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I need to check the weather, and then I go on and I'm like, oh wait, there's an Instagram notification. Oh, and then you shut it off, and it's like, oh, I never checked the weather, and then it's back again.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Right. And I don't want to point fingers, but like my worst clients, 100% the people who are more on their phones. Like I can tell you with 100% certainty, the more they scroll, like, you know, how you say to yourself this little story, how I just want to scroll at night so I can chill. It like calms my brain down. It's actually the opposite effect. The more you scroll, the more your brain gets triggered and the more dopamine comes out and the harder it is to take yourself away out of it.
true.
You said that you've been waking up in the middle of the morning and brain is running, right?
Yeah.
I did last night, and then boom, 3 o'clock. Now I'm on my phone.
Yep.
And then by 3:15, I'm putting it away.
Yep.
One unit.
Just wasted.
Just a quick 1 unit.
Oh, yeah.
peek,
Yes.
a sneak peek of 1 minute.
By 4:30, I'm still laying there
Right.
going.
Right.
I can grab my. No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. Yep.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
I slept
If
really
you guys
good
ever
for-
want to play a game, you could do that during your podcast or like
Yeah.
during a week. Just challenge yourself how many times, like just pure on honesty, like throw $20 in every time you touch it for no reason.
Oh.
So you'll be
Yeah,
shocked.
because there's no reason for him to even be here, right?
Right.
This is our attention span, right?
Right.
But yeah, I started by I was looking at your bio. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what questions am I got? Oh shit, yeah, the weather in Vegas tomorrow.
Well, right. I mean, these companies are spending thousands and thousands of dollars, right,
Yeah.
to lure us all in. And now they're spending even more because the attention span is
attention
getting
span's
shorter,
gone.
right? Where we were at 7.5 seconds before, now it's like 5.5 seconds. So, of course, they want us there indefinitely.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep.
It really is. But
So I'm a pen to paper because if I write it down, I remember.
Yeah.
If I
Yes.
type it, I got a
Yeah.
chance.
Right,
But I mean,
right.
you tell
50-50.
me, no
Yeah.
chance. My wife can attribute to that, or she can verify that. But I would take that piece of paper, fold it in half. One page was Monday through Sunday,
Okay.
and the other half was when I was doing the ball club stuff or the coaching, booster club, work related. And I did not put family on there.
I was
you
just
know,
going to say
It wasn't on there originally, and then I
Uh-huh.
found like, okay, I'm dedicating time to it.
Okay.
So it was my own kind of block system, but I've since put it. I've gotten rid of the days, but per day, the time frame, because I am saying I'm productive between 9 and 11:30. If I get my reports done at that time, I got a chance.
yeah.
But I know I have a ball game later in the afternoon. I've got to get all of this stuff done, you know.
Right.
And if I don't,
Right.
Yeah.
gone. Day's
just-
gone.
yep.
And then I'm figuring out dinner, and I'm trying to do
Yeah.
all the other stuff.
That's really interesting about the phone too. I've been trying to be better about it, but I have the Instagram for my own personal one, which I'm now very careful. I actually spent 4 units on Easter unfollowing people. I don't know why that was my Easter gift, but I just started unfollowing annoying people because I'm very careful about what's on mine because I don't want to corrupt my brain too much.
100%.
But I also have the people do that Instagram, and shamefully, I just followed a bunch of people on there because I hope they would follow us back, and a lot of them did. But because of that, we follow a lot of things on there, and when sometimes I click on that and start scrolling. And it's pretty horrible and depressing. I mean, it's like the Gilbert Goons stuff, and you get in a rabbit hole there, and you got all these things that are like, did you see this girl's arm got amputated because of this? And I'm like, just feeding this negativity. So like you talk about, I'm just going to scroll a little before bed. If that's your algorithm that's coming to you, that's a little bit. It's not going to help you sleep well at night.
We call it doom scrolling in our house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'll just be like, what are you doing? To my wife in the other room, she's like, doom scrolling.
Right.
At least
Like,
you
let's
can
watch a
admit-
movie or do
Right.
something.
Right.
Like go for a
Right.
walk or
Right.
whatever. Because I'm doing the same shit, and
Right.
we're both just sitting there doing nothing.
Well,
So
or even in
messaging
the
each other,
mornings,
yeah.
right? Or in the evenings, either way. I always say, like, would you open your bedroom door to 1,000 strangers in the morning?
Well, it depends.
You did that in college
Depends who
once.
they are.
Depends on what we're doing.
Right. But most people would not. So why are we opening this device where you
right.
have thousands and random people literally feeding you information you didn't need in the first place?
Right? Why would you go on a podcast and just share everything that you do?
Right.
People do that.
Yeah, people do that.
But while we're on that, Olenka, shout out. What's your Instagram? Say it.
Oh yeah, my Instagram is Olenka Cullinan, just the way the first name and the last name. Or I start first. I have both accounts. I don't run both accounts. I literally would contend anybody in this room or most rooms with leaders how little time I spend on my social media, even though it's badass. Shameless plug, because I'm super intentional. Everything that goes out on either account is very, very intentional. Yeah.
And who does it for you?
Most of my Olenka Cullinan account is done by me, especially my stories are all live. My feed is very curated. My feed is split between me and my team. So I have an amazing team of VAs that run pretty much both accounts with my marketing director.
All right. Yeah. I need people.
We should have Kaden put that up just so that they get the spelling right.
Kaden.
Yeah, Kaden, you got that.
Wherever you are in New Zealand, please do that for us.
I was going to say, so we have a senator here, Kristen Sinema, that when she was running, she called certain stay-at-home moms leeches.
Oh, wow. All right.
Which was immediately
ruthless.
then, I don't care about any of your policies. My wife is a stay-at-home mother.
Right.
You now don't get my vote, right? Because you just called my wife a leech.
Pretty short-sighted of her.
Yes. How does the stay-at-home mom that doesn't want to be like the badass boss bitch, like entrepreneur,
But
like
to
where
me,
does that fit
the
in?
baddest boss bitches out there are stay-at-home moms, right? Like if you want to get anything done, give it to a mom. There's that saying for a reason, because they're used to chaos. They're used to running million and one things at all times. They operate under pressure the best that I know. They would contend most CEOs that I know, really. So they absolutely still, like a lot of, actually I work with a lot of stay-at-home moms, because they just want to have the balance in the sense that, and it happened to me too, right? Especially when your kids are little, you sort of get pulled into all the kids' activities, and sometimes you miss the adult time and the me time, right? That's kind of like the balance that I hear from them the most is I'm struggling, I'm losing me because there's so much the kid and the husband and this family thing. So that's what we work on, and their thing is the same. Like, how do I give activities to my kids and I'm present, but how I also find me time and stop with this whole endless guilt of not asking my husband for help or support, or occasionally stepping out of a house and still keeping up with my girlfriends. And there is that dilemma, right? So for me, I don't care what you do. I personally think, like I said, I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom until Sophia was almost like 2. So for me, it's super important to still have that balance, because being a boss is not about being loud or running multi-million-dollar company. Being a boss is being a boss of you, right? If you feel aligned with where you are and how you position yourself in your family, in your life, in your, friends circle, that's the most important thing. And that actually brings me to another point that I wanted to share, that I work with Tibbs Group and everybody, rewards. And that is where women especially sometimes feel super guilty. And that goes back to stay-at-home moms. Like, you deserve you time. You deserve the time to walk away, get your hair, get your nails, go to the gym, just like anybody else. And you as anybody, right? Like stay-at-home moms, leaders, period. So a lot of times we remove that off the calendar first. And especially for my moms out there, like, we're so good at saying, oh my gosh, my workout, never mind, right? Like, I'm going to give it to the kid, or husband is needing something. Let me drop my, girlfriend coffee. I'm not going to plug this in. I always say everything that's me and my daughter goes on the calendar first. Her games, my stuff. And so one of the things that I train with a lot of CEOs is reward system. I say that most of us don't live the life of our dreams because our reward system sucks in personal life and in business. My vacations go on my calendar first. My daughter's time goes on my calendar first. And then we build everything around. How many people who do that? Most of us plug it in last minute. Yeah. We cancel shit. We add it last minute. We'll just do something. I don't want your children at their spring break to find out what they're doing the day before. They should have known that 6 months ago if you're truly aligned with what you're saying. It's the same with moms, right? Like, if I'm a stay-at-home mom, you still should have you time, and it shouldn't be dependent on anything. It should. I understand kids get sick, and that's different. But for most part, they have opportunity to be they pour into the whole family, and you can't pour from empty. And that goes for anybody, but especially stay-at-home moms, because they run the show kind of behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. So if you're not pouring into yourself first, like my grandma had this coolest story explanation, if you will, that she gave me when I was little. She said, like, Russia is big on tea, right? So you have the teacup and the saucer. So she said, you fill up the teacup first, and whatever pours over into the saucer, that's what you give away. So you have to keep that teacup full. And especially if you're a mom and you're listening, like, you ladies run the show. This man could not live a day without you. I'm saying that shamelessly. So,
I think I'd last like 3
yeah.
until I just fucking wasted.
Well, and on top of it, the children would protest at some point. So we definitely want, like, for me, like I said, you're a leader. I don't care if you lead a family, a factory, a building, a company. That's what leaders do, right? And so for me, stay-at-home moms, it's just a form of leadership.
So are you, for the CEOs that you work with, are they all women CEOs?
Nope, I have men and women CEOs, just like the teams are all co-ed. So, but when I work with, like I have a mastermind that's specifically for women, an event that's just for women. Yes, there it's 100% female. So I have basically almost like 2 arms to my business. One is just for female leaders, and that's all female-centric. And then for larger companies, it's teams and leaders, and they're all co-ed.
Do you ever want to, like, for some of the CEO, that have been in corporate America for 40 years or whatever, do you ever want to just go like, dude, you're 58 and you got a 13-year-old at home because you started late, of course, on your second marriage, of course, and you have $30 million in the bank and fucking hedge funds and all this. Knock it off and get out of here.
Yeah, that's pretty much the conversations I have all the time.
Yeah, what the fuck are you doing, man?
You know, my number one, and like all my CEOs who are listening, I love you all. This is not personal. But my number one question that makes about every male CEO cry, and female too, but for most part males, because they're a lot tougher. You guys are always fine until it's not fine. So my number one question that makes them cry is, in my first interview, I ask this question very publicly to them. I say, I want to know, what's your child's favorite color? And most of them cannot tell you. And that's the reality of
orange and blue.
Yeah. That when I was 5, and I honestly, like, I had some of this experiences with my daughter. Like, my daughter still has this line that I hate, and I'm working on that. But sometimes when I come home, she goes, sometimes when you walk in, I don't even ask. I hate that line.
Don't you? What do you mean?
Because she won't even ask anything, because she reads off my energy, how I walk into the door.
Because you might be pissed or something.
I might be pissed. I might be still processing. She can tell I'm not, like, I'm there, but I'm not there, right? It's that leftover
like, hey,
stuff.
Mom?
Yeah.
Did you want to?
Yeah. She literally is like, I don't even ask.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what she means by this, right? And that's the stuff. Sometimes we don't even want to admit to ourselves the shit that we're putting out there, because we think we're doing great and we're so proactive and we're so organized. And I teach this for a living, but I'll be the first one to admit that it's a constant learning. It's like constant process of recalculating that, for sure.
I like how she said, for all my CEOs out there that are listening.
A lot of them are.
If you are listening, hit that subscribe button.
You should absolutely. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and they didn't even pay me for this.
See, that's true.
You can learn a little something from the
And just so you
infantry
guys
level
know,
here.
her units are very expensive. Like, the fact that no, that's no joke. The fact that we're getting 6 units of her time, what companies pay for 6 units of her time,
drive.
is and the drive.
Thinking time on the drive.
Yes, I mean, I gave her a gift
and
card
then
for.
he was quarter unit late.
Yeah, that QU, that quarter unit, that QUL.
Do you know how much we can do in quarter
I know,
unit?
jeez, we could have.
Yes.
Do you notice a different, like you said, when you meet with the CEOs, and especially the males, and you take the phone away or something, and you ask them, like, maybe go through the day and prioritize, where do you find, like, the biggest pushback, like the thing that they're most not willing to give up? Is it that accessibility to everybody?
Yeah.
Is it,
and you know why?
they want to control everything, right?
Yeah, one of it is control, and part of it is, like, it's a normal human ability, especially for males. You guys you have that part of your brain that's designed, it's the hero mode, right? Like, I am going to be everyone's hero, savior, supporter.
Yep.
I am the best at doing it, the fastest, the most efficient.
So
Yes.
And where are you going? Yeah, tell me more.
On the next hour on the Tim and Olenka show.
So it sounds like you've been spending some units with me.
And so because of it, they are not even willing to admit to themselves most of the time, right?
Yeah.
I call it the FOMO, but it's you FOMO. You have the fear of missing out on everything in your business, in your life, in your team's life. So you want to be in everything, right? And so that's the hardest part. That's where they go, I'm fine, till they're not fine. And we keep digging until we find out that they're actually not fine. But most of them, when you sit down with, especially with female CEOs, they're faster. They'll like vomit everything at you. That's like the difference in gender intelligence. Women will give you everything faster. They'll still struggle giving it up. With men, we have to dig to that point. They're like, oh, I'm great. Everything's great. Work with my team. I don't need any help.
18
right?
minutes later, they're bawling.
Yeah, 18 minutes.
I didn't know Veronica's favorite color is blue.
Where's my third phone?
Right, exactly.
I gotta call her. Go to the safe and get my phone.
Right, and that's the biggest thing, right? It's hard, and I get that. Like I said, for men, being in that hero zone is super important, and that's for all the females listening. As women, I can tell you this with 100% honesty too. We don't do a good enough job to often praise you guys for being in the hero zone, but because of it, you're doing even more of it. And sometimes that's what eats up your time because you're so much saving and doing things out there. And one of the other things, to go back to CEOs bawling, my other thing is always, because they always like, the pushback is always, but I want to help. I want to help my team.
Yeah.
I want to help my customers. I want to serve people. And my pushback to that is always, what about your wife? What about your kids? What, don't you feel bad for them?
Yeah.
Don't you feel bad not being at that first day of school?
Yeah.
Don't you feel bad at not being at that game? You know, when you've seen one game out of 6, I don't know who you're serving here.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, their first answer is always like, no, they know the deal. They know what they got into.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. They
my
like
wife
that
knows
house.
what she got
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
They're like, no.
Yeah.
Nobody signed up.
Like the craziest thing, I sat down with a CEO yesterday. He knows who he is. And he literally said to me, I mean, he's killing it, doing great, growing his business. But he's like, I said, how old are your kids? He goes, 3 and 4. And I'm like, what about their time? He goes, well, they don't need me that much yet. And like, he was straight up on it. Like, we're good now. We figured that out, that they do need him, right? But like, it's pretty common for males sometimes feel that because the kids are little, somehow it's okay. And that's when we need to remind of psychology piece that everything is developed before the age of 5. After that, we're just supporting, fostering, and growing. But really, the main characteristics and qualities are there before they turn 5. So yeah, they do need you at all ages.
What do you see? So you mentioned that you're divorced, and of the people that you work with, I don't care if they're male CEOs or women owners of businesses, whatever. Where does I think our divorce rate's like 50%.
Crazy.
Right?
It's like 53 and a half.
Okay, yeah. So it's right around there. Like, do you see any common trends or traits in there as to why?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's because males have a very hard time. It's like 2 trains that miss each other. And that's a lot of gender intelligence play into that, because males will be fine until they're not fine. And by that time, the woman's train has left the station many times, right? Like, she's circled back. She's on a circular train that's going by you. Like, hey, it's not good. Hey, it's like, I love when men say to me, like, I don't understand. She just up and left. I said, no. That usually means that there were 44 and a half times she's brought it up in various options but she wasn't assertive enough to say it directly, and you swiftly swept it under the rug. And then on the 41st time, when she said it in the language and the delivery that you understand, she up and left. But you missed the 44 cues that happened before that, right? Like, speaking, and that's not, again, like I said, you have to remember, when I talk gender intelligence, for me, it's never offensive. It's understanding how differently we're wired. When you ask your wife and she tells you, I'm fine, what does it really mean? You're never fine, right? Like, in that moment,
I better solve the problem.
Yeah.
That's what.
At that moment right
Superhero.
there, she's everything but fine, right? And so that's exactly, I think, what happens in a lot of families, is where females are not assertive enough to explain it in a male way and delivery and language, and males think everything is fine because they're just boxed in. Like, right, guys do amazing job, Tim brought up earlier, compartmentalizing. So they can, as long as work is going good, we're not touching the home box, right? And then females can't do it. They operate everywhere across. We're like computer with 17 tabs open. So we are like dripping over here that it's not good, but you have never registered that because you're in your compartment. Come back to me in 3 days. And so I think that's where the problem is. And I see it a lot with like even culturally, right? Like I said, the gender conversations that are happening like in our culture right now are not very productive. They're not. They're kind of blamey and finger pointy and very like, ew. Yeah.
Do you almost kind of feel like you're part? Is it psychology or psychiatry?
For sure, yeah.
Like, I mean, is it?
Well, my minor is in psychology, and I've done about every brain development training that's out there right now, and I do them periodically because I genuinely believe that, yes, if you let everybody be at the best of their ability and you bring that understanding to the table, that's when the magic happens, right?
What do you do for fun?
Lots of things. I travel. Like, I'm a big travel junkie. My daughter probably traveled more than most adults, you know. I definitely love spending time with my friends. I date. I go hike. I run marathons and half marathons. And then I read. I do fun courses or attend events and stuff like that.
How fast do you just call a guy out when you're on a date? If you're dating guys, I don't know if you're dating.
I am dating guys.
Okay. Are you like within 30 seconds like this fucking schmuck?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I'll see it even before I go on a date. I'll be honest. I'm pretty picky if we go on a date. So yeah, but I don't usually call people out because nobody likes to be called out. It's super defensive, right? The only thing that happens when you get called out, people's guard go up. So, but I exit pretty quickly for sure.
Ghosting. She ghosts.
Exit stage left.
Yeah. I don't ghost. I'm very direct. That's a Russian in me. You know, I literally have like I'm giving away all my secrets, but I absolutely have a canned message of thank you so much. This was great. But
Like, would you like to go out again tomorrow? Yet.
Yeah, one word.
Yeah,
One word.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
If I switch to Russian, you know.
Yeah. For some reason, I just see Teddy KGB from Rounders. I don't know.
Yes, totally.
Chick.
She's just looking for a guy that she can say "ya to be a blue" to.
Looks like you might be going on a date.
Who studied 3 days before going to Russia?
Yeah, I did that.
He forgot his passport.
He spent a unit trying to say that.
Yeah.
I never used that line in Russia. I will tell my wife, Julie.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we are well over time.
Are
She
we?
is definitely a guest that we could have back again
Yeah.
because she has
Yeah.
so much more knowledge to hit. Follow her on Instagram for sure. Kaden will put that up. And Olenka, thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank
Thanks
you. That
for
was
having
awesome.
me.
Thank
It
you
was awesome.
Very fun.
Thank you for those 5 units, 6 units.
6 units.
Incredible.
6 unit play. Yeah.
People do that.
People do that.
Later.
People do that.
Oh, now give me just a little bit, and I don't need a lot. Open up your heart, show me what you got. Sugar taste, sweet coffee. Give me just a little bit. Give me just a little bit, and I don't need a lot. Open up your heart, show me what you got. Sugar taste.